Well, glad to have you back. Now, Nigeria's non-oil export sector experienced significant growth in 2023, with the country exporting 6,685 million metric tons of non-oil products valued at $4.5 billion. Now, this represents a 28.04% increase from the previous year. And that's underscoring Nigeria's ongoing efforts to diversify its economy and reduce reliance on oil exports. The Executive Director, CEO of the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, NEPC, Tisnoya Ayeni, disclosed this in Lagos at an event put together by the council. Mr. Ayeni noted that 273 distinct non-oil products were exported in 2023, ranging from semi-processed goods and raw materials, agricultural commodities. Key exports include urea, cocoa beans, sesame seeds, soya beans, gold, cashew, aluminium ingots, and hibiscus flower. Well, let's talk about this. More around this. And Mr. Peter Adebayo is the lead consultant, Chief Executive Officer, 2612 Consulting and Professional Services. Good afternoon, sir. It's good to see you.
Thank you once again, Tolu, for having me. And well done for doing a fantastic job as usual.
Thank you so very much. I think we should start with away from, we are saying that we should look now away from tax and oil and how government can generate revenue. For a long time, we've stayed with revenue generated from oil. We got so used to it, and we left agriculture and other sources of generating revenue. So when you're saying that now, try to help us put it into context, what you're really, or where you're headed.
Thank you once again, Tolu, for having me. The concept of revenue generation is very fundamental to economic growth and development. And when you look at revenue generation, you migrate it to growth in revenue generation. And there is no way you can talk about growth in revenue generation as a nation or as an organization without talking about diversification, which does not necessarily mean divesting, because there is a misconception or misapplication in the way we have practiced this in recent time. Diversification that I'm talking about here has to do with considering an additional revenue source to enhance your revenue growth while maintaining the existing revenue to continue to generate. For instance, oil was our mainstay.
Yes.
It took us a longer time before we started diversifying to tax. Now tax has been generating. Now, if you look at what we have been getting from oil over the past few years, it is nothing to be compared to what we used to get when oil was the mainstay. So, what we are talking about here is not paying attention to just considering another line of revenue that will increase your revenue without having to concentrate on the one that you have existing. So, in other words, oil has been giving us revenue, tax has been giving us revenue, while we pay attention to those revenue sources to continue to contribute to our revenue generation potentials. We need to think of other alternatives that can equally provide revenue for us, so that in aggregate, by the time you now begin to look at what we are getting from tax, you add it to what we are getting from oil, you add it to what we are getting from other sources. Relatively speaking and progressively, we'll be maintaining steady growth in revenue generation. Now, that's one. Now, if you look at the economic history of Nigeria, you will know that this is our third phase. You know, the third phase was the pre-colonial days.
Yes.
You know? That was a period from inception of Nigeria prior to 1900. We had the colonial era, which was the period from 1900 to 1960, 60 years. And we have what we call the post-colonial era. That's what we are now. I mean, otherwise known as the post-independence. And when you look at what we have done, what we did either pre-colonial or during the pre-colonial and the colonial era, you will agree with me that as at that time, we oil had not been a major stake, so to speak, because oil didn't come until about the end of the second era, when we first discovered oil in a village called Oloibiri in the present Bayelsa State. You know, that was in 1956. I know, by the time we got to post-independence, we experienced the boom. Unfortunately, by the time we got the boom, we became complacent as a nation. And that complacency made us predominantly dependent on oil until very recent years, when our eyes opened. And we're now talking about what can we do, you know, in the area of tax. And you will agree with me, we've had to talk about tax revenue generation, you know, several times. We've talked about budget on this platform.
Yes.
We've talked about this, how tax has significantly contributed to our revenue generation. You look at the budget of 2024 that is about to wind up. You'll agree with me that when that budget came in, it was a budget of 27.5 trillion. And the quantum of that budget that was allocated to revenue from tax is huge, right? And that's why you discover that even from the 27, of course, later it was increased to 30 by additional 6 trillion, to 33. And in spite of that, you discover that the chunk of what we are hoping to finance still lies on tax. What we are saying is fine. Whatever we are generating from tax today, even if we are generating 100 trillion from tax, and we are generating another 100 trillion from oil, we are saying it is not enough for us to rest on our oars. We can look in other directions. We can look in agriculture. You mentioned agriculture. Yes. Agriculture was a mainstay. In those days, you know, pre-independence, we were practically, look at the cocoa house of this world, you know, where we had cocoa in the north, in the southwest here, we had tin, we had granite in the granite pyramid.
Sorry, let me interject. Many said that we had those things, but population also was not as much as this. So maybe there was no proper management. I don't know.
You see, one thing about, when you look at population,
yes,
you see, economic growth,
yes,
is measured not just in terms of naira and kobo, but also in terms of numbers. I mean, if our population pre-independence was less than 100 million, and post-independence today we're over 200 million. That presupposes that, look, the strategy that we adopted, I mean, look at this studio, for instance. When you started, the strategy that you used to start, when you started the TVC, if you have to adopt the same strategy now, you agree with me that it's not going to work to achieve the kind of objectives that you are set to achieve. So as population is growing, we need to have the statistics and know the proportionate rate of growth in population, so that we can project a proportionate growth rate in revenue generation. That's the only way. Otherwise, you would discover our population will be growing in a geometric progression. Revenue growth will be at arithmetical progression, and there's going to be a lacuna. And when that lacuna is there, we won't have any choice but to resort into borrowing. There is something to do that has been smuggled, so to speak. I'm using the language smuggled into our revenue generation system, and that is external debt financing. There is nothing wrong in external debt financing, but then by the time external debt, look at 24 budget that we're talking about, from 27.5 trillion, the quantum of projected revenue out of 27.5 trillion was about 18.something trillion, which means we were relying on additional external debt financing to the tune of about 9.18 trillion. Now, what we are saying here is, if you are sure you can generate 18.something trillion from a combination of tax and oil. Now, why if you go to agriculture alone, if only we can give agriculture the desired attention, I can tell you it has potential to give us more a combination of what we're going to get from both tax and even oil. So agriculture is there. Solid minerals is there. Tourism is there. Look at Dubai, for instance. Dubai gave themselves a 20-year plan. If you look at Dubai, what are they surviving on today? They are predominantly a country that is surviving on income from tourism. And that's why you discover that a Dubai, for instance, has tourist attractions from even the so-called giant and advanced nations all over the world. It doesn't matter. So it's all about knowing where you are going from where you are. Now, apart from agriculture, I talked about tourism. Mining. I talked about mining. Solid minerals. Of course, there are quite a number of other things. Now, you see, one thing I say about Nigeria is I don't know of any other nation that has the kind of resources that we have. If today, God forbid, if the oil dries up today, we are not going to pack up as a nation.
Yes.
We'll still sit down and
There
start.
are options.
How do we move forward?
Yes, there are options.
Do you get it? Now, look at our manufacturing sector. I remember when we were growing up, the Obakrans of this world, Obakran, Oregon area, Ilupeju, they were referred to as industrial estates.
Yes.
But today, where are they? As at that time, if you look at the quantum of their contributions toward the growth of economy in terms of revenue generation, it was very significant. But today, because all those industries, due to issues of absence of enabling environment, infrastructural inadequacies, they've had to migrate to the West Coast. So, and of course, I'm not going to be here and let you know that it's going to be cast on stone. For us to be able to generate adequate revenue in agriculture, we can even do agriculture by leveraging technology. You can borrow expertise from nations of the world that they are very, very sound in agriculture, even if you have to bring their in collaborative capacity. All right? I mean, look at our construction. Today, no matter how bad Nigerian economy might be, you see Chinese are still here dominating Nigerian economy. Before Chinese came in, it used to be Julius Berger. But today, Julius Berger is in the construction. Chinese, they practically dominated that. So why is it that we cannot also do what Chinese has done as a people? Such that when other African countries are looking for construction, organizations to do constructions for them, they are looking in the direction of Nigeria. So these are quite a number of other things that we have to look out for so that we can maximize our revenue generation. I mean, we can't afford to just look at tax. The reforms they are doing on tax, obviously, will generate a positive response, provided implementation is very.
Implementation is key. Yes. The stabilization bill and all of that is being
passed to the national
by the time we did it. Now you've highlighted these things; they look very pretty to me. Let's now look at efforts by present government to harness these opportunities. We see a lot of moves in the solid mineral space. I have been reporting news, and we see that it's been different from what we used to have before now. There was not much activities in that space before now.
Prior to now.
Yes, before now, And now we also see that, just like the report I read, non-oil exports, and NEPC is saying we are doing pretty better. But what deliberate actions are you expecting, Adebayo? Because I know you like results.
Definitely. I mean, I'm a results-oriented person. That's the truth. You see, without having to speak on behalf of the president.
Yes, I know.
You can see
the issues.
You can see the direction that he's facing.
Yes.
One thing is, why it doesn't appear that people are feeling it right now is because where we are coming from, it's a major issue. And whether we like it or not, we can afford to wave it aside. But if you look at what the president is doing, I believe, as somebody who is very objective, this does not have to do with political undertone. He has direction. And if you look at, you can see the way as he's trying to ensure that he gives attention to the fiscal reform. I know that that's not going to be the only sector. For us to be able to, move ahead, that reform must be total. I want to believe that, the reform is not going to be limited to tax reform. I want to believe, of course, like you mentioned, you have been reporting it, the issue of solid minerals, and I know it's beaming searchlight in those areas because he has an idea of the potential revenue that we can generate from solid minerals. Look at the issue of illegal mining activities. Tolu?
Yes.
If you have to aggregate the leakages by way of revenue losses that Nigeria is experiencing as a nation due to illegal mining activities, it is huge. It is huge. All of this, I can tell you, if we pay proper attention to those areas, just like I believe the president is trying to beam his searchlight on those areas, the 9.18 trillion that we had projected to borrow to supplement the initial 27.5 trillion budget before the additional 6 billion can conveniently be generated from solid minerals if we put attention in these areas. So I am sure that by the time the reform is done, completed, in the tax sector, it's going to cascade, to the solid mineral sector. It's going to cascade to the industrial sector. It's going to cascade to construction sector. It's going to cascade to other aspects of the economy. It's going to go into education. It's going to go into our medical sector. One thing with all of these sectors, why the reform is necessary for it to be total. Even if you are not able to increase your revenue in a particular place, there are government agencies, there are parastatals that have budget, for a particular period of a year. If I am giving you your budget this year without even an incremental whatever, the moment we're able to address the areas of leakages in that budget, it automatically translates into increase in their budget. So I have no doubt in my mind that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is determined and highly committed to tap into the potential, the huge potentials that we have, not just in the solid minerals sector of our economy, but also in the construction sector, also in the manufacturing sector. And how can we do this? Of course, we're still going to hinge on our infrastructural issues. We still have to pay attention to those infrastructures. And again, we must be able to demonstrate enough commitment. I mean, I'm going to go back to that issue of illegal mining. The question is, why is there illegal mining? Why are there illegal mining activities? All right?
Yeah.
Now, we must be, part of what I expect, if you sense areas of threat, if you sense factors or forces that are capable of sabotaging the genuine intentions of government in these revenue generation potential areas, what I expect government is going to do is, first, identify those threats.
Good.
Identify the factors, identify the forces, analyze them, examine them, evaluate them, and of course, ask yourself, what can you do to be able to tackle it? You must rely on, because there is no group of individuals or group of people that can be more powerful than the government. All right? So which means we still have to rely on the rule of law to be able to address the illegalities in that sector of our economy, which I believe is very, very fundamental and germane. Revenue growth.
I'll tell our viewers, we are going to have a part 2 of this discussion, because I know there's still a lot we need to dig around this other revenue thing. But this is much time can take for today. I thank you so much for your time. It's always good having you on the show. Basic analysis, hitting the points. This is really great. I must thank you so much. Lead consultant, Chief Executive Officer, 2612 Consulting and Professional Services, Mr. Peter Adebayo, speaking there on other revenue sources. I'm so excited about the breakdown of how we can harness these opportunities. And like I said, a part 2 of this with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you once again, Tolu. Let me assure Nigerians, hardship is an important part of realizing destiny. Nigerians are facing hardship. I believe that the hardship is for a moment. At the end of this tunnel, definitely there will be light.
Thank you so much. I think we need more people that will let Nigerians understand that that's where we are headed. But that's it. Thank you so much again, Mr. Adebayo. Let me take you to some company